Well, good afternoon, everyone. Might be evening by the time this gets uploaded, but we'll see. We'll see how it goes. Well, we made it through Memorial Day. I know that sounds dismal, doesn't it? but I mean, in all seriousness, some of the stuff that was sent to me, emailed to me, shared with me, or whatever, I was a little curious to see what may happen on the world front and the war front and all the fronts. And but no, in all seriousness, no, it was a very violent weekend. I'm sure people probably know that if you've been looking at the news past page one or whatever, depending upon who you subscribe to, what you pay attention to, listen to, whatever case may be. It was a very, very violent weekend. Fortunately, a lot of death, not only in this country, but in Liverpool, England, and just, I guess, major flooding in India, I believe, and as well as I think there was some flooding, or at least threats of flood in the U.S. again. I think there was some flooding, if I remember right. Oklahoma, Arkansas, Mississippi, Louisiana, Alabama, I think. I'm not for sure on that. I can't keep track of everything that's going on, and quite honestly, I really didn't pay that much attention to stuff because, it's technically a holiday weekend. You're spending time with family, and my wife had a really good friend of hers in town she hadn't seen for a while, and who I hadn't seen in a much longer while, and so it was good to catch up and just kind of relax a little bit. The weather here was decent overall. Pretty dismal and dreary yesterday, kind of like today, rain off and on. Appropriate, I thought, for Memorial Day. On a personal level, for me, I thought it was appropriate because, like I said before, or at least implied or shared things before, I don't look at it as a time of like picnics and barbecues and putting the boat out on the lake and all that. I'm not saying there's necessarily anything wrong with that, but as long as just people remember what it's supposed to be about, what the whole meaning of it is about, whether, I don't know, there's so much division nowadays, and there's so many opinions and belief systems and everything, whether people support the military, don't support the military, support the country, don't support the country, believe in America, don't believe in America, and on it goes, believe in the flag, don't believe in the flag, whatever. I mean, I'm not going to get into all those debates and issues. I actually heard a teaching about that. I can't remember where I heard it from. I honestly can't remember, but it was good. It talked about not debating, not arguing. Don't getting into debates and arguments and over foolish things. It's totally biblical. I think Paul talked about it, as well. I mean, but it was a good teaching. Whoever put it on. I can't remember exactly who it was, honestly. I'd be guessing if I said any names or ministries or whatever. But it was good. I liked it, because it made a lot of sense. Why debate and argue over silly things that don't have to do with the kingdom? They aren't a salvation issue. They don't really matter in the big scheme of things. But there are things that do matter. And, I think it's going to be a very busy week. I think that's the title I'm going to have for this, is a busy week. I really do. And I got that title from something that I said myself, actually, as my wife and her friend and I were all watching the PBS Memorial Day concert. That is the 36th year they put that on, and man, it's not really a concert. I mean, it's a concert. It's an event. It's a memorial. It's a lot of things. It's a remembrance. But anyway, if people want to check it out, and it really is worth your time. It really is very, very, very well done. No matter what people's belief systems are or what have you, it's very well done. And it's free on YouTube. But they do it live on the night before Memorial Day. So it would have been Sunday on PBS, and then they uploaded it to YouTube. And I had almost forgotten about this thing. They've been doing this thing for 36 years. That's really impressive. And
I don't know how many years my wife and I and me, just alone and with her, we've been watching this thing, and maybe years ago with our kids as well, but I would say at least 10, but I'm not exactly sure. But it's been going on for 36 years. Like, wow. And it's just very well done. And like I said, if people want to check it out, you just type in, PBS Memorial Day Concert. It'll come right up on YouTube. I think I even shared it to the post, or I think it's pbs.org/Memorial Day Concert or whatever. But anyway, very, very well done. Gary Sinise, Lieutenant Dan from Forrest Gump, he hosted, and with Joe Mantegna usually. But Joe wasn't there. Mr. Mantegna wasn't there. I think he's ill. I think I remember reading something about that. I don't know, but Esai Morales, replaced him, and they just do a really, really good job with bringing other stage actors on, actors from TV, film, whatever, and they tell the stories of real life heroes, and the reason was so interesting this time, and I'll get to why I think it's going to be a busy week, is when the Joint Chiefs came out. But I'm going to get there in a second, because I think this is important for people that won't watch it or don't want to watch it or whatever. It's fascinating because they tell the real life stories of these heroes from the different wars and conflicts. And the interesting thing about this one is, let me see if I got this right, it's the 80th anniversary of World War II, and we still had a few World War II veterans left. Not many, but a few, and they honored those on stage. And it's the 75th anniversary of the Korean War. And again, not a whole lot of Korean War vets left, but there are some, and they honored them. And then it is the 250th birthday of the Army, Navy, and Marines, all this year. So this one was really very historically significant. Overall, I think it's probably the best one that I've seen, because like I said, they have actors come out and they tell the story in the hero's own words of what they experienced and went through, whether it was in Vietnam, whether it was in I guess it was mostly Vietnam. I think there was one for World War II. I can't remember them all now. One was definitely Iraq and Afghanistan. That was the hardest one, because the stories of the survivors, well, for the most part, they're still alive. But the one that was told from the wife's perspective, who lost her husband, who is a special forces operator, a Green Beret in the Army, Mike Simpson, I believe his name was. He died. He got hit with an IED, and so that one was really tough to hear. And of course, his wife is remarried since then, and they have teenage sons. It looked like they were teenagers, but anyway, it's a tough thing to watch, but it's a good thing to watch, and it's a good family event. It's a good teaching event, let's put it that way, for young people, especially people who are interested in joining the service, or definitely for veterans families, and even younger kids. Like I said, there's nothing objectionable in it, really, other than real life war footage, okay, which is of course disturbing and a little bloody, but for the most part, though, it is a very good thing for people to watch, and it's free. I mean, even if you don't have regular TV, like we don't, we have streaming services. I did for years, but not anymore. So you just wait for things to get uploaded to streaming services or YouTube or whatever. You can watch them there. So anyway, while we're watching this, and it was the second time I had seen it, because I watched it myself before, and then my wife and her friend Debbie and I watched it together last night. And I remember thinking it the first time I watched it, and the second time I actually said it out loud. when the Joint Chiefs came out toward the end of the ceremony, I said, these guys are going to have a busy week. And I wasn't necessarily prophesying anything. I was just giving my opinion. I was like, I think they're going to have a busy week. Because I've been paying attention to what had been going on over the weekend, with the war rhetoric and the bombings and the attacks, and just a very violent weekend overall. I guess it kind of started maybe even before the weekend, really. But it was just very violent overall. And I said, yeah, they're going to have a busy week if they're listened to. If they listen to the Joint Chiefs. And then the chairman of the Joint Chiefs, I believe his name is General Kane, I believe. I'm not for sure on that. But I believe his name is General Kane. He's Air Force General. He gave a little mini speech. And it was very good. And he seems like a very sincere man. And my wife asked me, do you know anything about these guys? Honestly, I really don't. I didn't know who any of them were till last night. I really didn't. Because I just didn't really pay that much attention. I've known who they were in the past because I'd heard their names mentioned a lot, whether good or bad, So I just remembered that. But, I wasn't familiar with any of these guys. So when she asked me, I said, honestly, I really don't know who these guys are. So I just decided to go ahead, and I didn't really research him that much, but I was really listening to what he had to say. And I didn't see any hints of anything. They really tried to keep it on the down low. I mean, it was about remembering service members, whether alive or dead, those that have been deployed or whatever, honoring veterans and whatnot. But I just started thinking to myself, isn't it interesting that we're having another Memorial Day and we are right on the verge of war? I mean, the whole world, it seems like, it's like a ticking time bomb at this point. The rhetoric is definitely heating up in a major way, and not for the positive. As a matter of fact, I would suggest, not that anybody's going to listen to me about this at all, and of any importance anyway, that has any kind of clout, people just be quiet. That's what situation rooms and war rooms are for. Let's not use signal chat apps and the rest of this garbage. Let's just kind of keep our cool, keep your tongue, be quiet if at all possible. And, I would say the best thing to do would be to just let everybody say what they got to say, whatever plans need to be made, whatever ideas and whatever thoughts there are regarding, pending attacks of what have you, let it be in the situation room, the war rooms, or whatever the case may be. And let's not, let's not be foolish. I think there's been a lot of foolishness, and it really does put lives at stake. It really does cause a lot of harm, and it's completely unnecessary. So I would say, tone down the rhetoric, and let's not be so foolish, when it comes to these things. Hopefully our leaders will be smart, including the Joint Chiefs of Staff and so forth, because I'm sure it's going to be a busy week. I really believe that. Could be wrong about that, but I really do, because the information that's coming down the pike now, whether it's from HalTurnerRadioShow.com or other YouTube videos, or people that are just sharing information from other people, articles, Substacks, or what have you, it seems like it's all leading up to a major escalation. And who knows when it's all going to kick off. But it seems like the peace talks have stopped now. I did see something about Hamas might be willing to deal or something of that nature. But when it comes to the bear and us, no, it's bad. The peace talks have pretty much stopped. And, like I said, and the rhetoric doesn't help. Calling your counterpart or what have you crazy and, losing their minds and I don't know what's wrong with them. That kind of stuff should stay in a situation room, the war room, where you're talking to your generals and you're talking to, the other people in leadership positions, the people that are advising and hopefully have some kind of expertise. But hey, what do I know, right? But it reminded me of something earlier today too. Two movies actually. The first one is Failsafe, and I'll get into that one in a second. And the second one, which is even probably more appropriate because we're in the month of May, is 7 Days in May. And if people have ever seen those movies, you know what I'm talking about. If not, you could probably find them like on YouTube for free or some streaming service or whatever. But they did do a remake of Failsafe like in the 90s. It was like a made-for-TV movie, which was decent, but it wasn't as good, I don't think, as the original. And the plot line was a little different, too. But the original Failsafe with Henry Fonda as the president, and I'm dating myself here, but, Larry Hagman, J.R. Ewing from Dallas. He was in it. I think Walter Matthau, and I can't remember who else. Maybe George C. Scott. I'm not for sure. But those old-time actors. You know what I'm talking about? But anyway, the thing about this movie, though, is very intriguing if people are not familiar with the plot, the storyline. What happens is a critical error is made, a horrible error is made, and militarily speaking, where Moscow is bombed. And it shouldn't have happened. It wasn't supposed to happen, but it did. And the president, and then whoever the president of, Russia is, Soviet Union, whatever at the time, they are trying to come up with some type of solution where they cannot go to World War III and where nuclear weapons are not used. They'll probably take this video down. I'm saying all the words you can't, whatever, But they are. I'm so sick of being censored. Which reminds me, I have a Substack now. I shared the link a few times, as people want to check it out. I've actually gained many subscribers from it. Only had it up a few days, and I've already got like over 70-some subscribers on it. So most of these people are people I don't even know. I don't even know who the heck they are, but they must like the content or must like what I'm sharing, because I can share things there, at least so far, that I can't share or won't share on YouTube, because it gets you in trouble, gets you strikes, gets your channel removed, or you get copyright violations or whatever, which could lead to strikes. So I can share things on the Substack that I can't usually share on YouTube. So that's why I've done that, kind of as a backup. I'm not interested in Rumble or any of those other things. I figure, this doesn't seem to have a high censorship level, at least not right now. I haven't gotten any warnings. Nobody's complained. Everybody's been very civil. There's not as many arguments or debates, no combativeness or anything of that nature. Everybody's been pretty cool. It's nice to see civility, where people aren't always at each other's throats and, and arguing and just, have something negative to say all the time about people's videos or content or whatever. It's nice. So it seems to be pretty civil over there. So anyway, so I digress. But the whole thing with the failsafe is they're trying to come up with a way, and so they're on the phone and they're talking to each other, and the only thing they can come up with is the only way that this is just, I guess the action is just, is that New York City is allowed to be bombed in retaliation. Because it had about, at least according to the movie, the same population, similar population to Moscow. And so since Moscow was already bombed and nothing can be done about that, and the Russian president or the president of the Soviet Union or whatever, is talking back and forth with the American president, that's the only conclusion they can come to avoid all-out nuclear war. So, and that's basically how the film ends. And really tough for the president about it is not only does he order, who seems to be a decent man, okay? They don't really go too much into his background, but he seems to be a decent man. That is the only choice that is on the table, really, other than all-out war. But what's really tough for him is his wife and daughter happen to be in New York at that particular time that he is allowing, New York to be bombed. And we do it. Does any of this sound familiar? And this movie was made, I think, in the 50s. I think the same thing was 7 Days in May. So I started thinking about all this stuff, stuff started running through my head as I'm listening to, as I'm watching the concert and I'm listening to the Joint Chiefs. And I wasn't in the best mood afterward, for sure. I was very introspective, and it really put things into perspective listening to the real life stories of these heroes that sacrificed their lives for others, whether they were dust-off pilots in Vietnam, a corpsman that risked his life for many in Vietnam as well. The youngest Master Chief I've probably ever seen in my life, who's a Navy SEAL, Edward Byers, I think his name was, who was injured in combat. And the last two I'm mentioning are Congressional Medal of Honor winners, so they honored these people as well. And so, yeah, this guy's a Master Chief Navy SEAL. Master Chief's an E9. People don't know in the Navy, and that's as high as you can go, other than Master Chief of the Navy and the enlisted ranks. So, but Navy SEAL, you can make rank pretty fast too. I went to hospital corps school with a Navy SEAL. He came in E3. When he graduated from corps school, he was an E5 because the SEALs needed corpsmen. So he was already a Navy SEAL. But yeah, he came in E3. He graduated. They made him an E5. They put him up 2 ranks. He became a petty officer 2nd class, just like that. Just by going through corps school and graduating. But anyway, yeah, this guy probably looked like he was in his 40s, maybe. And he's a Master Chief. And I was like, wow, that's really impressive. But he earned it, I mean, they all did. They all earned it. They all earned their rank. They all earned to be, honored and, and the decorations that come with that, the medals and so forth. Whether people agree with it, disagree with it, or whatever, in my opinion, they earned it. They sacrificed for others. They were willing to put their life on the line for others, is really what it boiled down to. So, as I'm watching this and listening to these stories or whatever, I'm thinking this is going to be a busy week. I believe in my heart. And I believe that I'm not saying that we're going to go have a fail-safe incident or 7 Days in May incident or anything of that nature. I'm not saying we're going to do that. We're going to have that. I just think it's going to be a busy week because over the holiday weekend, and this is typical, every 3-day weekend pretty much has riots, shootings, lots of violence, vandalism in major cities. Happened in Philadelphia, happened in Los Angeles, happened in Liverpool, England, over a stupid soccer game, just dumb stuff, stupid stuff. People lose their lives over stupidity. 47 people, stupid stuff. 11 in Philadelphia. I don't know how many people lost their lives unrelated to any of the vandalism in Los Angeles or whatever, but I'm sure all that happened as well. So it's just crazy, It's just all very crazy how this is going down. But anyway, I encourage people to watch that, Memorial Day concert event or whatever if you want to. It's about an hour and a half long, no commercials, but it's very, very well done. Very respectful, very well done. Very, get some Kleenex, at times for sure. I mean, but it's just a good thing to watch. It's a good thing to, to be aware of. And hey, if I'm right and this is a really busy week, well, what can I say? The war rhetoric is really ramping up. There is no peace. There's more bombings. There's more death. There's more violence. There's more chaos. I mean, we're here. What can I say? I mean, not even talking about the economical aspects of everything. I mean, a couple weeks ago, it reminded me because somebody left a comment or whatever, thanked me or whatever for it. A few weeks ago, I put out a video called Prepare, Don't Get Caught in the Line. It might have been a little early to put that out. I mean, maybe it's been about a month. I don't know. 2 weeks to a month ago. I don't remember when I put it out. But anyway, it might have been, but I don't think it is now. So if people want to check out that video, I basically just kind of share my own personal feelings, perspective on things that I've dealt with, things that I've experienced or known of other people that I've experienced, and just kind of some of my own background and knowledge, things that I've learned over the years, and things I've heard that for sure and shared from others and whatnot. So I mean, I think it's a pretty long video, but I think it came out pretty well, and I think there's some good tidbits in there. It's not like City Prepper or Canadian Prepper or even Southern Prepper 1 or I mean, I'm not nearly as smart as these guys or as well equipped or prepared. I mean, I'm not, but I just kind of share some things from my perspective. Like yesterday, I got to share my story, which I wasn't planning to do with my wife's friend because she didn't know it. She didn't know. I mean, I've known these people a long time, her husband, their girls, and so forth. I've known them since their girls were like children, but haven't spent a lot of time with them, And this is the first time that I've had a lot of time to spend with her, or around her in years. And so my wife and my son and, my wife's friend and I, we're all sitting on the table at the back deck, and she asked me a question, and I answered it, but it wasn't like a yes or no answer. I mean, she wanted to know. I kind of asked her, I said, well, how much do you want to know? What do you really want to know about, Desert Shield, Desert Storm, about the military, about, what it was like, about what do you really want to know? And it was kind of an appropriate day to talk about these things. She kind of wanted to know it all, and so, I mean, I probably talked more than I should. I know everybody would say, yeah, you talk way too much about these things. Yeah, but like I said, it wasn't an open-ended question. I mean, it wasn't a yes or no question. So, I mean, I shared a lot of things with her. Same things I've shared in interviews with Pastor Faircloth and June Knight from years ago, and even, on my other channel, which was taken down. I mean, it's the same thing that I've shared many times before. But I went into a little more detail, and because I was thinking about some different things as I was talking to her, and since it wasn't public, it was more of a one-on-one conversation with my wife and son listening in, and my daughter in and out from time to time, so I felt like a little more open, like I could share a little bit more and talk a little bit more about how I've counseled people, young people, not to go into the military now, people that my kids graduated high school, went to high school with or whatever, and pretty much my wife's former students, that joined the service, they all regretted it. I don't know if anybody has said, yeah, that was an awesome experience. Now, people say, well, yeah, they served under the last administration or regime or whatever. Fair enough. They did go in like 2020, so it was a horrible time in the world, so I mean, I'm sure there's going to be a repeat of that from what I'm hearing and reading about and so forth. I'm sure there's going to be a repeat of that and much more, but not quite yet. People aren't seeing it quite yet. They're not preparing for it yet. They're not thinking that way yet. They will. Like I really believe, like after June 1st, people start thinking a little differently. I really do believe that. Come like just after the first of the month with their preparations and seeing things, rises in prices, maybe some empty store shelves here and there, a lot of store closures, restaurant closures thing. I think people will start to kind of get it, and then over the summer they're going to really get it. I think they'll really understand then. But it's going to take a few more months. It's going to take a little while longer. But anyway, I was telling her, and my wife vouched for it too. It's just like these young people, they really regretted it, and it's sad because my experience overall was positive, and I know the people I served with overall it was a positive experience. But now, with everything that's going on in the world and has been going on in the world, specifically over like the last 5 years now, 5+ I guess, I would imagine that young people's military experience going in right out of high school or ROTC out of college or whatever, for the most part, I would imagine it has not been fun. It has not been enjoyable. And I feel bad for them. But I kind of saw the writing on the wall about some things, and I did, advise at least 2 young men that I knew, friends of my kids and whatnot, not to do it. But they really felt patriotic, I guess. They felt it was their duty. They felt they wanted to do certain things, and they just did not have a good experience. They did get some good education out of it, some good knowledge, some training that they can maybe use on the civilian side of things, but their experience overall was not positive. And so I say that because, with all the troops, the young people, and even, people my age or younger or what have you, that are deployed now or will be deployed, this is going to be tough. It's going to be tough on them. It's going to be tough on their families. It's going to be hard, and I don't know when all that's going to start going down, but if this rhetoric starts to go from verbal to physical in the very, very near future, and biblically it will, I see these things where it says, Russia's in trouble. Russia, no, they're not. Not according to the Bible, they're not. The bear's going to rise up and eat and devour much flesh. Okay? Not according to the Bible, they're not. The bear, the dragon, no, they're not. We're the ones that's in trouble. We're the ones. Mystery Babylon, we're the ones that's in trouble. But you're not going to get the majority of Americans or people that even go to church believe that or understand that or respect that. Because the rhetoric is, yeah, they're in trouble because they're not doing the right things, and they're, escalating things, and they're doing this and doing that. And I'm just thinking to myself, yeah, it's all according to the Bible. It's only a matter of time before it really starts to ramp up in a major way. And then all these people on ship and all these people being deployed or have been deployed and, stationed in certain areas, certain bases around the world, located in other countries, conducting military operations, or like I said, they're on post or bases throughout the world. It's like, man, you talk about danger close, man. Hazardous duty and combat pay on the way. If they haven't had they probably already have the hazardous duty pay, probably not the combat pay yet, but it's coming. It's coming. Provided they survive, that's good money. But can't take it with you. Can't take any of it with you. So, anyway, just my thoughts on Memorial Day, the concert, just listening to the true life stories of these heroes and how they sacrificed and, were willing to sacrifice. One did definitely sacrifice his life in the stories that were told, and others, they survived. But, man, and there was this country music artist, I'd never heard of him before, by the name of Scotty Hastings. Dude got shot 10 times. 10 times. He taught himself how to play guitar. He only has 4 fingers on his right hand, I believe it is. Yeah, I think he has, 2 fingers, excuse me. He has his pinky and his thumb, I believe. His other 3 fingers, at least part of them are gone. I mean, Purple Heart recipient, obviously. Was like, wow. And a dude, he's a country music star. I never heard of him before last night. And taught himself how to play guitar and everything. And it's just like, man. Some people out there are just really impressive. Just the sacrifices they make, the things that they're willing to do for others, their service, not only to their country, but to others. They're just impressive. So, I don't know. Still got a few more days of Military Appreciation Month. So I'm just kind of being introspective here, and and just then June comes, and then Don't even get me started on June. June used to be a fine month before gay marriage, okay? And before they just took it over. You know, it's just like, I never had a problem with June, but now I just dread June because you got to deal with all of this garbage. Maybe it won't be as bad as it has been in previous years. I don't know. I hope not. But my goodness, it's just ridiculous. So enjoy the next few days of May before it ends. So anyway, with that, I think I'm going to go ahead and go. Y'all be blessed. Have a good evening. Head on a swivel. Just like, I don't know. Seems to me things could pop off any time. I know people throw their dates out there because of this, because of that, because of this, because of that. Hey, listen. I think it's danger close, and I don't think it has to be on any particular date per se. But if you look back in history, I know these dates all have meaning. And, you know, June 6, 1944, D-Day invasion and so forth. They all have meaning. I get that. But does it have to be on a particular date? I don't know. I would just be prepared for practically anything at any time at this point. Because, I mean, the war rhetoric is just, it's off the chain. I mean, it doesn't help. It just doesn't help because the verbal can become physical very easily. It can escalate to physical very easily. So, we'll see what happens. All right, y'all take care. Have a good one. Bye-bye.